John had been working for hours, his eyes scanning the monitors and his fingers tracing over the metal surfaces of the spacecraft. The Voyager 7, a massive intergalactic ship, was designed to travel across vast distances in space, carrying precious resources and passengers to distant planets. But something had gone wrong. The ship's fuel reserves, vital for its long journey, were depleting at a rapid rate. And no one, not even the best engineers, could figure out why. It had started 3 days ago. Small fluctuation in the fuel. Readings. At first it was barely noticeable, just a tiny dip in the fuel gauge that could have been caused by a number of things. A malfunctioning sensor, a minor leak, or maybe just a glitch in the system. But as the hours passed, the depletion became more pronounced. The ship's fuel consumption was off the charts. And yet no one could locate the source. John was the last one still awake, his mind racing with possibilities. The ship was in deep space, far from any nearby stations. If they couldn't fix this problem, they would be stranded, helpless, floating through the vast emptiness of space with no way to refuel. The situation was dire. He had checked the fuel tanks twice, running diagnostic tests and manually inspecting every inch of the ship, but there was nothing. No leaks, no cracks, no errors. Everything seemed fine. Too fine, actually. John couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was hiding the truth. But how? He was sure he had missed something. Something small, something subtle, as he walked down the quiet, dimly lit corridors of the ship. The low hum of the engines echoed through the walls. He knew the ship inside out, had worked on it for years. Yet this problem seemed like an enigma. It was as if the fuel was disappearing into thin air. John paused in front of the fuel chamber. The room was sealed with heavy metallic doors, and the lights inside blinked steadily, indicating the status of the fuel reserves. He reached for the door control panel and slid his finger across the biometric scanner, opening the door with a soft hiss. The chamber was cold and sterile, filled with tanks and pipelines running across the walls. This was the heart of the ship's energy, where the most valuable resource in the galaxy was stored. If the fuel leak was here, it would be impossible to find without careful investigation. John stepped inside, his boots echoing as he moved deeper into the chamber. He checked the pressure gauges, running his eyes across the systems. Everything seemed in order. The readings on his tablet told a different story. The fuel levels were dropping again. "Where are you?" John muttered to himself. But his voice was barely a whisper in the vast emptiness of the chamber. He ran his hand along one of the pipelines, feeling for any irregularities. There were none, no leaks, no holes. No signs of anything unusual. Fuel was simply disappearing. As he turned to leave, a small beep from his tablet caught his attention. It was a trace of faint spike in the fuel consumption. It came from a hidden section of the chamber, an area that hadn't been part of his original inspection. Without wasting a second, John followed the signal, his mind working in overdrive. He rounded a corner, heading toward a part of the ship that was seldom used. The area was tucked away behind a series of thick, locked doors that led to maintenance tunnels. John's heart raced as he approached. He had never been this far into the ship before. It was not a place he was supposed to be, but the curiosity, the need to understand what was going wrong, pushed him forward. He reached the door to the maintenance tunnel and opened it. The room was dark, save for a single dim light flickering overhead. It was a tight space, filled with pipes and equipment, making it difficult to move around. But John was determined. He walked carefully, his eyes darting around for anything out of place. And then he saw it. A figure, a strange figure, crouched beside one of the fuel tanks. It was a woman, or at least, it looked like one. But there was something off about her. She had pale, almost translucent skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were wide and luminous, like two pools of deep space, and her hair shimmered as if made of stardust. She was bent over, her hands cupped around the valve of the fuel tank. John froze. He didn't know what he was seeing. The alien girl was drinking the fuel. Her mouth was pressed against the valve, and the liquid seemed to flow directly into her. She wasn't just near the tank. She was consuming the ship's precious resource as if it were water. His mind raced. What was this? How was she even able to do this? Why wasn't the ship's security system detecting her? John felt a wave of disbelief. He had been searching for a technical leak, but this was something he had never even imagined. Girl didn't notice him at first, her focus entirely on the tank. But as John took a step closer, the sound of his boots echoed through the chamber. She stopped. Her head snapped up, and her glowing eyes met his. For a moment, neither of them moved. It was as if time had frozen. Then, with a sudden movement, she backed away from the fuel tank, her eyes wide with both fear and defiance. John opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was speechless, stunned by what he had just witnessed. This was no ordinary leak. There was a deeper mystery at play, and it was about to unravel in ways he couldn't have possibly imagined. John stood frozen in place, his heart hammering in his chest. The girl, no, the creature stared at him, her glowing eyes full of both curiosity and fear. The strange, otherworldly figure seemed so fragile, yet she had just consumed enough fuel to keep the Voyager 7 running for weeks. How could such a being exist? And why was she drinking the precious fuel of a ship stranded in deep space? His mind raced with questions. The fuel was irreplaceable. Without it, they would all die out here, floating in the vast, empty universe. Yet, somehow this girl, the alien, was the one causing the mysterious depletion? Who are you? Finally managed to say, his voice a mixture of confusion and fear. He took a step forward, but she took one back, retreating into the shadows of the maintenance room. The alien girl didn't respond right away. Instead, she gazed at him, her expression unreadable, as if calculating how much to reveal. The silence between them was thick, like the air was heavy with the weight of the unspoken truth. Then, in a voice as soft as a whisper, yet carrying an unmistakable edge of urgency, she spoke. "You don't understand," she said. Her words were slow, careful, but laced with an unmistakable foreignness. "You don't know what's happening." Here, John's mind whirled. He had been prepared for a technical explanation, something mechanical, something scientific. But this was beyond what he could ever comprehend. He reached for his communicator, but she stopped him with a mere gesture, her hand raised. "Don't call anyone," she said quickly. "It'll make things worse." John felt a chill run through him, and for the first time in his career as an engineer, he realized that he was completely out of his depth. The ship had been his domain, a world he understood fully. But this alien girl, this creature, was a mystery that even his vast knowledge couldn't explain. What are you doing here?" John stammered, still struggling to find his words. The girl's eyes darkened, and she stepped closer, her body language changing from cautious to defensive. She eyed him carefully, as if trying to decide whether or not to trust him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of silence, she spoke again, her voice quieter now, almost pleading. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. "I came here to warn you, but I'm running out of time." John's mind spun even faster. Warn him? About what? What could possibly be so urgent that she had resorted to drinking the very fuel that powered the Voyager 7? "Warn me about what?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the very question might unlock something far more dangerous than he was ready for. Her eyes flitted around the dark room, almost as if she feared being watched. Then she took a deep breath, and in one quick movement removed a small glowing device from her wrist. It pulsed with an eerie blue light, humming faintly as if it was alive. "I need you to understand," she said, holding the device up for him to see. "This isn't just a fuel leak, it's an invasion." John frowned, his confusion growing. Invasion. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts, then spoke with a sharp urgency. "The fuel you're using, it's not just any resource. It's the key to an ancient energy source, something far older than anything you could possibly imagine, and it's being hunted." John's mind struggled to keep up. Energy source? Invasion? It didn't make sense. but the way she spoke, the seriousness in her voice, made him realize she wasn't lying. She was desperate. "Who's hunting it?" John asked, his tone more serious now. He had no choice but to listen. The gravity of the situation was beginning to hit him, and he needed answers. Fast, the alien girl's eyes flicked toward the walls, as if she could feel the danger closing in. She looked back at him, her face suddenly filled with a kind of sorrow. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you, but there's no time to explain. The ones hunting this energy," she hesitated, then added, "they aren't from your world, and they won't stop until they get what they want." John's pulse quickened. The Voyager 7 had been out of contact with any known alien species for years. The ship was designed for a long, solitary journey. Who could these invaders be? Before John could ask another question, the girl's body tensed. She held up a finger to her lips, signaling him to be silent. Her eyes darted toward the door, her expression turning to one of panic. John didn't need any more clues. Something was wrong. Someone or something was coming. Without thinking, grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the fuel tank towards the back of the chamber. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway, growing closer. John's heart raced. They weren't alone. "Who else is here?" he whispered. The alien girl's face turned pale, her voice shaking as she whispered back, "It's too late. They found us." Suddenly, the door to the chamber slammed open with a deafening noise, and a group of heavily armored figures stepped inside. Their presence was imposing, and John could feel the tension in the air thicken with every passing second. The alien girl's eyes met John's, and for the first time, he saw the fear in her gaze. This was no longer just about fuel. The room grew colder, the tension in the air thickening with every passing second, and John's heart pounded in his chest as the metallic door of the chamber groaned under the weight of the footsteps approaching. He had no idea who these armored figures were or what they wanted, but one thing was clear: they weren't here for friendly reasons, and the alien girl, standing beside him, was in more danger than he had imagined. The girl grabbed John's arm, her grip surprisingly strong for such a fragile-looking being. Her glowing eyes darted toward the door, and John could see the fear in her expression and emotion. He had never expected from someone who had just consumed an entire ship's worth of fuel. She wasn't just afraid of the invaders. She was terrified of something much worse. "We need to move," she whispered urgently, her voice low but filled with an unmistakable sense of dread. John didn't question her. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing: he had to trust her. With a swift motion, he tugged her toward the far corner of the chamber, guiding her behind a stack of storage crates that lined the wall. The footsteps outside grew louder, and John could feel the vibrations of the heavy boots pressing against the metallic floor. Whoever they were closing in fast. The alien girl crouched beside him, her breathing shallow, her eyes locked onto the door as if she could will it to remain closed. John's mind raced. There was no way they could face these invaders head-on. Not without knowing who they were, what they were after, or how to stop them. Just as the door to the chamber slid open with a loud hiss, John's stomach dropped. The figures that entered were nothing like anything he had seen before, clad in dark, reflective armor that shimmered with an unnatural glow. They moved with the precision of soldiers, but they weren't human. Their movements were fluid, almost animalistic, and their faces were hidden behind helmets that resembled the skulls of ancient predators. Their very presence exuded an aura of danger and malice. John's pulse raced as he pulled the alien girl closer, trying to keep them both hidden from view. The invaders spread out across the room, their footsteps echoing in the otherwise silent space. "Where is she?" one of them growled, his voice distorted by a thick, metallic filter. John's breath caught in his throat. They were looking for the alien girl. But why? What did they want with her? The girl beside him stiffened, her face paling. She clutched her wrist device tightly, her fingers trembling as she tried to suppress her fear. The figures seemed to scan the room, their attention shifting from one corner to another, each movement more deliberate than the last. John's eyes darted around the chamber. The room was small, too small to escape without being seen. "I won't. Let them take me," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible. but filled with a resolve that sent a chill down John's spine. The invaders were getting closer. One of them stepped forward, his hand outstretched, and John instinctively grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her further into the shadows. They needed to move, and they needed to move fast. If they didn't, they'd be caught. And God only knew what would happen then. "They're not here for you," she whispered to him urgently. "They're here for the fuel. They want to take everything, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." John's mind raced as the realization hit him. It wasn't just the alien girl they were after. Was the fuel the very substance that powered the ship? But why? What was so important about this particular energy source that it warranted a group of deadly invaders tracking it across the galaxy? "They're after everything, John. Everything that powers the galaxy." Her voice quivered slightly, as if she had seen what happened to those who failed to protect such resources. They won't stop until they have it all. Before John could respond, the invaders' leader, taller than the rest and exuding an air of cold authority, approached the storage crates, his helmet scanning the room with a faint, mechanical whir. John held his breath, barely daring to move, praying that they wouldn't be discovered. The leader paused, as if sensing something, and turned his head slightly toward the corner where John and the girl were hiding. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. John's entire body tensed, preparing for the worst. But then the leader moved on, gesturing to his companions. "The fuel must be extracted immediately. This ship won't leave this sector." John's mind raced. They were going to drain the ship's entire fuel supply. They were going to take everything, leaving nothing behind. The girl's grip tightened on John's arm, and she pulled him toward the back of the chamber, away from the invaders' path. But there was no escaping this. They were surrounded, and the alien girl was the key to it all. "We have to stop them," she whispered urgently. "If they get their hands on this fuel, the universe will change. They'll have the power to destroy entire civilizations." John looked at her, his eyes wide with shock. "What are they? Who are they?" The girl's eyes met his, and for the first time, John saw a deep sadness in her gaze. "They're the scavengers of the galaxy. And now they're hunting me and the fuel. If they succeed, it will be the end of everything you know." John felt his heart sink. There was no way out, no easy escape. But one thing was clear. The battle for the fuel had begun, and he was caught in the middle of it. Stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. The chamber had grown quiet, eerily so. The invaders had moved deeper into the ship, their heavy footsteps fading as they advanced toward the control center. John could feel the weight of the silence pressing against him. It was as though the world had stopped moving, and only the beat of his heart kept time. But the alien girl beside him wasn't waiting. Her eyes were filled with determination as she pulled him further into the shadows, away from the danger that loomed just beyond the corner. She moved with purpose now, her earlier fear replaced by a sense of urgency that John couldn't ignore. "We don't have much time," she whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. "Once they access the fuel core, it's over. The ship will be powerless, and so will you." John's breath hitched. "What do you mean, so will I?" The girl didn't look at him as she continued to move quickly through the dimly lit hallways. "The energy in that fuelit's not just power, it's a living force. It's a force that is connected to every living being in the galaxy." She paused, her gaze flickering to John. "And if they drain it, they'll sever the link. The very thing that keeps life in balance will be gone." John struggled to keep up with her pace, his mind reeling with the gravity of what she was saying. A living force. It was insane. How could fuel something so mechanical, so scientific be alive? They reached a small junction, a passageway that led toward the lower levels of the ship. The girl stopped, turning to face John. "I've been tracking them for years. They're called the Zerathon, ancient race of scavengers, who believe in consuming the life force of entire civilizations. They've destroyed planets before, and now—" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "Now, they want to do the same to your world." John's mind felt like it was about to explode. The Zerath. A race so dangerous that they consume the life force of entire planets. How could anyone be that powerful, that merciless? And what was this life force she kept talking about? Was she implying that the fuel wasn't just energy, it was something far more important? What do you mean, my world? John asked, his voice betraying a trace of panic. The fuel is just for the ship. It powers our journey. It's not. It's everything. She cut him off. That fuel is what connects your world to the entire galaxy. The Zareth don't just want the fuel, they want to control everything. They're trying to unlock the hidden potential of the fuel to wipe out entire civilizations and leave only their own kind behind. Once they do that, your planet will be nothing more than a dead rock floating in space. The reality of the situation hit John with full force. He had assumed this was just some technical malfunctioning, unexpected leak that could be fixed with a little ingenuity. But now, the stakes were incomprehensibly higher. The Zarath weren't just invaders, they were harbingers of the galaxy's destruction. But if the fuel is so powerful, why don't you just take it and leave? Why stay here? John asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. The girl's eyes softened, a hint of sorrow flickering across her face. 'Cause I'm the key. She lowered her gaze, taking a deep breath. I'm not just an alien. I'm part of something much bigger. I was sent here to protect the balance, to stop the Zeroth before they could reach the source of the fuel. John blinked, stunned. You're what? I'm one of the last of my kind, a keeper of the energy that powers the galaxy. She looked him in the eyes, her expression serious. I have the ability to shield the fuel from their grasp, but only if I have control over the ship's core. If I don't stop them, they'll take it all. John could hardly process the magnitude of what she was saying. A keeper? A protector? It seemed too fantastical to believe, yet here she was, standing in front of him. A living testament to the truth of her words. The alien girl wasn't just a scavenger or a refugee. She was the last defense against an enemy so powerful. It threatened the very existence of life as they knew it. How do you plan to stop them? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. By locking them out. Her words were deliberate, calculated. I can access the ship's mainframe and activate a defense system. It will seal off the fuel core, keeping the Zarath from siphoning any more energy. John felt a spark of hope flicker inside him. If there was a way to stop this madness, to protect the fuel and prevent the Zarath from succeeding, maybe there was still time to turn this around. But he knew the clock was ticking. And what happens when you lock them out? He asked, already fearing the answer. The girl's eyes darkened. If I lock them out, they'll retaliate. They won't go down without a fight. If they can't get the fuel from us, they'll destroy everything in their path. She clenched her fists, her face hardening. But we don't have a choice. It's the only way to stop them. John nodded, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. The fight wasn't over, it had only just begun. He didn't know how they were going to do it, or if they even stood a chance. But one thing was clear. He couldn't back down now. The fate of the galaxy rested on the next few moments. Let's do it, John said, his voice steady with newfound resolve. The girl gave him a small nod, her expression hardening into determination. The time for hiding was over. It was time to face the invaders and protect the very thing that kept the universe alive. The ship seemed to hold its breath as John and the alien girl moved silently through the darkened corridors. Every step they took brought them closer to the heart of the battle. The invaders, the Zarath, were relentless in their pursuit of the fuel end. Now they had crossed the point of no return. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a battle to keep the very fabric of the galaxy from unraveling. John could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The alien girl, her name still a mystery, had shown him a side of the universe he never could have imagined. The power that the Zarath sought wasn't just energy. It was life itself. And without it, entire civilizations would fall into darkness. This way, the girl said, her voice calm but determined as she gestured to a narrow, spiraling staircase that led deeper into the bowels of the ship. The core was located beneath them, where the energy source was stored. The Zarath were closing in fast, and if they got there first, it would be game over for all of them. John followed her without hesitation, sound of their footsteps echoing through the silence. He had no idea what the core looked like or how. The girl planned to activate the defenses, but he trusted her. He had to. She was the only one who understood what was happening. Do you really think you can lock them out? John asked, his voice tinged with doubt. He had seen the invaders. Power firsthand. Their technology was far beyond anything the Voyager 7 had. Could they really stop them? The girl didn't answer right away. Her eyes were focused on the stairs ahead, but John could see the faintest flicker of concern in her gaze. It was brief, but it was enough to make his stomach churn. The weight of what they were about to face was sinking in. "I have to," she finally said, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of something far more significant. "If I don't, everything will fall apart, not just here, but across the galaxy. The Zereth don't just want the fuel, they want control over all life. They've been searching for this power for millennia. And if they get it, there will be no stopping them." John's mind reeled. The enormity of her words was becoming clearer by the second. This wasn't just a battle for the Voyager 7. It was a fight for the very soul of the universe. As they reached the bottom of the staircase, the lights flickered, casting long shadows across the corridor. The core was just ahead. The final barrier between them and the invaders. But even as they neared it, John could feel the presence of the Zerath looming closer. He could almost hear their breaths, their heavy, metallic footsteps vibrating through the walls. The girl stopped abruptly in front of a large steel door. It was sealed shut, but she placed her hand on a small panel beside it. A series of lights flickered as she quickly typed in a series of codes. For a moment, the door didn't budge. John's heart skipped a beat. Was it too late? Then, with a low hum, the door slowly began to open, revealing the heart of the ship, the core. It was a massive chamber, glowing with an eerie, pulsating light, the energy source. It seemed alive, its very presence filling the room with an undeniable hum, a vibrational energy that felt almost organic. It was like the beating heart of the universe itself. John couldn't take his eyes off the core. The girl stepped forward, her face illuminated by the glow. For the first time, he saw something like sorrow in her eyes. "I don't know if I can stop them," she whispered, "but I have to try." Before John could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps reached their ears, louder now, much closer. The invaders were almost upon them. "Hurry," John urged, the urgency in his voice rising. "We don't have much time." The girl nodded, her expression hardening into something resolute. She approached the core, pulling a device from her wrist and holding it up to the glowing mass of energy. A series of lights blinked rapidly on the device, and for a moment nothing happened. But then the air around them seemed to shimmer, and John could feel the temperature drop. It was like the ship was coming alive, fighting back. But just as the girl began to access the mainframe, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The Zereth had arrived. They were here. John whipped around to see the invaders standing in the doorway, their towering figures blocking the entrance. Their helmets gleamed in the light, their presence suffocating. The leader stepped forward, a cruel grin visible beneath his mask. "You cannot stop us," the leader said, his voice distorted by the helmet's filter. "The fuel will be ours, and you are nothing but an obstacle." John's pulse raced. There was no way they could fight them off, not without the alien girl's power. But then, as if on cue, the alien girl turned toward the invaders, her eyes glowing brighter than before. The device in her hand buzzed, and a surge of energy shot out, encasing the entire chamber in a shimmering barrier. The invaders took a step back, their expressions hidden behind their masks. But John could see the flicker of uncertainty in their stance. "You can't have it," the girl said, her voice echoing with a strength that sent a shiver down John's spine. "Not while I'm still standing." The leader's grin faltered for the briefest moment before he snarled, "We'll see about that." Standoff had begun. The air inside the core chamber crackled with energy. The shimmering barrier that the alien girl had created pulsated with a bright, almost blinding light, casting long shadows on the walls. John stood there, rooted to the spot, his eyes fixed on the advancing invaders. The leader of the Zerath grinned from beneath his helmet, his posture unwavering, as if he knew the power of the girl's shield wouldn't last forever. "You've made a grave mistake," the leader snarled, stepping forward. "You cannot contain us." We have been hunting for this energy for millennia, and no one, not even you, can stop us now. John's heart raced as he glanced at the girl. Her expression was steely, unshaken, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of uncertainty. Was she really strong enough to hold the Zirath back? He couldn't afford to doubt her now. This was it, the final stand. We'll see about that, the girl whispered, her voice thick with resolve. Her fingers flew over the device in her hand, and the barrier pulsed brighter, almost blindingly so. The hum of the energy around them grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. But just as the shield seemed to reach its peak, a violent shake rocked the ship. John's body jerked forward, and he gripped the nearest console for support. The Zirath leader raised his hand, signaling to his team, and in an instant, one of them activated a strange device that seemed to drain the light from the shield, turning the barrier's shimmering glow into a dull flicker. No, the girl cried, her eyes widening in horror. The barrier was weakening. John watched helplessly as the invaders advanced, closing the distance with unnerving speed. The girl's breathing became more erratic, her focus slipping. She gripped the device in her hand tightly as if willing it to work against the onslaught of the Zirath's technology. But it wasn't enough. They were too powerful. In a flash, the leader of the Zirath lunged forward, his armored form blurring as he broke through the weakened barrier. The alien girl stumbled back, but John reacted instinctively, stepping in front of her. "Stay back," John shouted, his voice more out of desperation than command. "I won't let them take you." But the invaders were closing in fast. The leader's men began to advance, their weapons raised, their intentions clear. John could see the glowing energy cores on their suits designed to absorb and channel the very fuel they had come to steal. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized that without the girl's shield, they were doomed. The girl's eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment John saw something in her gaze, a flicker of fear that she hadn't shown before. "I need you to trust me," she whispered urgently. "I can still stop them, but you have to hold them off, just a little longer." John's mind raced. Hold them off? He wasn't a soldier. He was just a regular Gaian engineer, an observer. He wasn't prepared for this. The girl was asking him to fight, to protect her, to help save everything he knew. "I can't do this alone," she said, her voice breaking slightly. She reached out to him, her eyes pleading. "Please, ... John swallowed hard, his hands trembling. He wasn't prepared for what he was about to do, but he couldn't let her fight alone. Not after everything she had shared with him. Not when. The fate of the galaxy was on the line. Without thinking, John grabbed a metal rod from a nearby storage crate and raised it in front of him like a makeshift weapon. The Zirath leader's eyes locked onto him, and the grin returned to his face. "You're a fool," the leader growled, taking another step forward. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a pawn in this game?" John didn't care about being a pawn. He cared about the girl. About stopping the Zirath before they could take everything, in a swift motion. John swung the metal rod at the leader's chest, but the invader easily deflected the blow, sending John sprawling backward. John shot through John's arm, but he quickly scrambled to his feet, ready for another attack. The girl had already moved, her glowing hands raising a barrier between John and the advancing invaders. It was weaker now, barely holding them off. The invaders were pushing harder, their weapons beginning to charge. "It's not enough," the girl said, her voice tinged with regret. "I can't keep this up for much longer." They had to do something, anything, to buy them time. He glanced at the core. The pulsating light grew brighter, more erratic. The core itself seemed to be reacting to the presence of the Zirath. It was almost like it was alive, feeding off the energy, becoming stronger the more the invaders pushed. But how could they harness that power? How could they use it to stop the Zirath? Then it clicked. "We need to overload the core," John shouted, his eyes widening with realization. "If we can redirect the energy, we can destroy their equipment and stop them. But we have to do it now." The girl's eyes met his, and for the first time a flicker of hope crossed her face. "You're right." She looked at the core and then back at him. "But you have to activate the release valve. It's at the center of the core. You have to do it, John. It's the only way." John nodded, his heart racing with adrenaline. He sprinted toward the core, pushing past the alien, girl's shield and dodging the advancing Zeroth soldiers. As he neared the core, the chamber trembled once more, the walls groaning as the Zeroth's technology continued to drain the energy. But John didn't stop. He grabbed the valve, twisting it with all his strength. For a split second, everything went silent. Then a violent explosion of light erupted from the core, sending a shockwave through the room. The Zeroth were knocked back, their shields flickering wildly as they struggled to stay on their feet. The core was overloaded. The Zeroth's equipment began to short-circuit, sparks flying everywhere. But John didn't stop there. He turned to the girl, who was now standing beside him, her hands glowing brightly. "We did it," she said softly, a sense of relief washing over her. But the battle was far from over. The shockwave from the overloaded core rattled the ship like a thunderclap in the vacuum of space. The once pristine walls of the chamber cracked under the intensity, and the Zeroth soldiers staggered backward, their equipment sparking and hissing as the energy of the core surged through them. But John knew the fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. "We've only delayed them," the alien girl said, her voice low but firm. She didn't seem surprised. The battle, it seemed, had only just begun. The Zeroth are relentless. "Adapt. We need to finish this before they can regroup." John looked around the chamber, his pulse racing. The lights flickered, and the core's pulsating energy was beginning to stabilize. But the ship wasn't in the clear. The invaders were already starting to recover, their weapons sparking back to life. The girl was right. They had only bought themselves a little time. She stepped forward, her glowing hands raised toward the core, the light around her intensifying. It was like she was pulling the very essence of the ship's energy into herself. Her body shimmered, with a bright, almost ethereal glow as the energy wrapped around her, feeding her strength. John felt a chill as the core's energy flowed freely into the girl, her form glowing brighter with each passing second. "What are you doing?" asked, his voice thick with both awe and fear. She turned to face him, her eyes locked with his, and for the first time, he saw the full weight of what was about to happen. "I'm the only one who can finish this," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. "This energy, ... It's the life force of this ship, of every living thing it touches. But I'm bound to it, connected. If I can channel the core's energy through me, I can destroy the Zeroth. But I won't be able to come back from this." John's breath caught in his chest. He stared at her in disbelief. "No." He stepped forward, his mind racing. "You can't do this. There has to be another way." "You're telling me you'll die if you do this?" The girl smiled faintly, the sadness in her eyes clear. "This is my purpose. It's why I was sent here. The energy isn't just power, it's life. I'm the only one who can wield it, the only one who can save the galaxy from the Zeroth's greed. If I don't act now, they will consume everything. But if I do this, ... I'll be gone." John's heart felt like it was being ripped in two. He couldn't let her sacrifice herself, not like this. He couldn't stand by and watch as the girl, who had already done so much for him, gave up everything for a cause she had no choice but to embrace. "Please don't," he whispered, his voice cracking. "There has to be another way. Fight them together. We'll find a way to stop them." But she shook her head, her expression resolute. "It's the only way," she said gently. "I've been running from this moment for too long. Oh, I'm the only one who can stop them." She took a deep breath, her body vibrating with energy. "I'm ready, John." The room around them trembled once more as the Zeroth leader regained his footing, his eyes now fixed on the girl. He let out a low, guttural laugh, and his men moved to flank him. They weren't done yet. John's mind raced as he glanced at the girl, the understanding. In her eyes clear, she had made her choice. She had chosen to sacrifice everything, not just to stop the Zeroth, but to protect everything they had come to care about. "I'll stay with you," John said, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped his chest. "I won't let you do this alone." But she didn't reply. Instead, she closed her eyes and reached toward the core. The energy around her flared, crackling as she harnessed its full power. John could feel the ship shaking under the pressure. The Zeroth leader moved forward, his weapon raised. "No one will stop us," the leader growled, aiming at the girl. But just as he fired, the girl's energy flared, creating a shield of light that knocked him back. The girl didn't stop. Her hands were now fully extended toward the core, and the light around her intensified, wrapping the entire room in a cocoon of pure energy. John could see the strain on her face, the toll it was taking on her. This wasn't just about saving the ship. This was about saving everything they had left. Then, with one final powerful push, she released the full force of the core into the air, channeling it directly at the invaders. The room exploded in light, the energy surging out in waves. John threw himself to the ground, shielding his face from the blinding light, for what felt like an eternity. There was nothing but the sound of the energy raging, consuming everything in its path. When the light finally began to dim, John slowly lifted his head, his eyes squinting against the afterglow. The Zeroth soldiers were gone. Their weapons lay scattered on the ground, their suits short-circuited beyond repair. The leader was nowhere to be seen, and the girl, she was kneeling in front of the core, her body flickering, barely holding on to life. John rushed to her side, his heart pounding in his chest. "No," he whispered desperately, pulling her into his arms.
Oh.
"Please don't leave me." But the alien girl's eyes were already fading, her strength leaving her with each breath. She looked at John one last time, her smile faint but filled with gratitude. "I've done my part," she whispered. "Now it's up to you to rebuild, to carry on." And with that, she closed her eyes, her form dissolving into a glowing light that slowly faded into the air. John sat there for a long time, holding her in his arms, the weight of the loss settling in like a crushing weight. The galaxy had been saved, but at what cost? His heart ached, but he knew one thing for sure: her sacrifice would never be forgotten. The battle was over, the Zeroth were gone, but the journey was just beginning.